Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rick Steves Europe Tours 101 information session. Whether you are new to Rick Steves Europe and just learning what we're about, whether you've followed us for decades and are just starting to get curious about our tours, or whether you've been on a tour and are just looking for a refresher, we are grateful that you're joining us here tonight. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of serving as your host this evening as we explore our tour program with a couple of our resident tour experts. All right, we are going to get started on our presentation for this evening, exploring our Rick Steves Europe tour program. And I wanted to give you a little outline for what you can expect from this session. So in just a few moments, we're going to welcome on our tour experts, and they are going to talk to you about how our tour program started. They're going to talk about who enjoys a Rick Steves Europe tour. We know that we have a specific travel style, and we would want to make sure that it's the right fit for you. We're then going to talk about how we design our tours and what sets them apart. From there, we'll talk about our different tour types so you can help decide which type you might be most interested in. We're then going to walk you through a few days in the life on tour, give you some example days that we actually do on our tours. And at the end, we're going to talk about next steps if you would like to take those to taking a Rick Steves Europe tour, if you want to take the next steps. We'll then finish with that Q&A session. I will say at the outset here, if by the end of the evening you are interested, we did recently release our 2026 departures, and we do have an early booking discount of $100 off all 2026 tours through July 7th. And that will be automatically applied at checkout. So just something to keep in mind as you continue to ponder a Rick Steves Europe tour. But now we have a treat. We have a welcome message from Rick himself to tell you a little bit about his tour program and what to keep in mind as you consider potentially taking one of his tours. So let's hear from Rick now.
Hey, I'm Rick Steves, and I'm so glad you're joining us for this Tours 101 information session. When I started my tours way back in the late 1970s, it was 8 tours in a van with me as the driver. It's incredible to me that 45 years later, we now take over 30,000 enthusiastic travelers to Europe each year. We're passionate about connecting curious travelers with great guides, employing really smart itineraries, and a passion for experiential travels, so those who join our tours can enjoy the trips of their lives, exploring destinations all across Europe on more than 40 different itineraries. However, it's clear to me that our tours are not for everyone. Sure, for many, it's a great experience. That's why about half of our travelers are return customers, and hundreds of people have taken 8 or 10 or more of our tours. But we're not for everyone, and I've got to say, for the wrong traveler, a Rick Steves tour can be a hellish vacation. It's a big decision for you, a huge responsibility for us, and it's in everybody's interest to be sure people know what they're signing up for. And that's why I'm excited about the purpose of this session. Simply put, it's to determine if a Rick Steves tour is right for you. In this Tours 101 session, you'll learn about what kind of traveler makes a great Rick Steves tour member, how our tours are designed, and which tour might be the best fit for you. Plus, we'll give you a detailed look at a day in the life on a Rick Steves tour. I hope this is a great and enjoyable information session for you. You're in great hands with our team that's running it, and we all hope to see you on the road soon on a Rick Steves Europe tour. Thanks so much, and happy travels.
A thank you to Rick for that message of welcome. And now I would like to welcome on our tour experts for this evening, both of whom have a foot in both worlds. They work in our office here based in Edmonds, Washington, and are also guides that lead tours out on the road. We have the privilege of learning tonight from Andy Steves and Colleen Schaefer. Andy, Colleen, welcome, welcome.
Nice to see you, Gabe.
Great
Nice
to
to
see you,
see
Gabe,
you
and thanks everybody for
always.
joining us. We're happy to be here.
Absolutely.
And hi, Colleen.
Yeah.
Good to see
Hey,
you.
before we get started, I think a little cheers is in order. So
I love that idea.
Chin chin.
Chin
Chin
chin,
chin.
salute.
Salute.
Salute. And cheers to all of you at home. I hope that you have something to sip or nibble on throughout tonight's show. And Andy and Colleen, I want to thank you especially for joining us tonight to lend us your expertise, because I know that both of you are about to head out on the road. And so this is already a busy week for you. Can you tell us where you are about to be guiding in Europe?
Andy, do you want to go
Sure.
first?
Happy to, Colleen. So on Tuesday, I head over and I'm leading a Venice, Florence, Rome starting next Thursday. And then following that, I'm heading on a My Way Alpine adventure. Really looking forward to that.
And I am following short behind him. I'm going to be going next Friday. I'll be flying over and leading a Venice, Florence, Rome tour. So I'll be following you. And then when that's done, I will be leading a Best of Italy tour.
Sounds like it's time for a spritz, huh?
Absolutely. Or two.
Italy does
Yeah.
not know what it has coming. But I am so grateful that you two are here tonight to talk with our potential tour members. They certainly have a great pair of experts to learn from. So I'm going to let you do your thing, and I will see you at the end for the Q&A session. And another reminder to our viewers, please put your questions in the Q&A widget throughout the show for Andy and Colleen.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Gabe.
Gabe. See you soon. A presto. Andy, I know. I think it's so cool that they asked the two of us to do the show together. For one, we led a tour together. When was that?
2018, I apprenticed with you before they let me, out of the roost to lead my own tours. So it was a wonderful experience. I got to soak in some of your knowledge, some of your style, trained with another guide, and I've been able to combine all those influences to really, get into leading these tours. So I'm happy to be here with you and sharing what people need to know when they're thinking about booking a Rick Steves Europe adventure.
I think that's great. And you're right. It's fun because so often exactly what you did with me, apprenticing, our guides do that. So we learn from one another. Another thing that makes it so cool that we are doing this together is, of course, we both have a long history with Rick Steves tours. I started, I hate to say this because it's going to date me, but I started working for Rick in 1995. So I know a lot of the history of Rick Steves.
And I was born into it. Rick's my daddy. So
Right.
yeah, no, it's been a wonderful lifetime of interacting with these spectacular American and European guides. And I feel so blessed to be a part of it. And so excited to be here.
Great. So why don't we go ahead and get things started? What I'd like to do is share a brief history of Rick Steves tours because it really is important. If you want to know who we are, then you should know a little bit about where we came from. So let me take you back to a time before Rick's TV shows on PBS and his radio shows and his podcasts with NPR. And even before his books and the 5-star travel app that he created called Audio Europe. So we're going to go back to a time in the 70s, as he mentioned on his video, when Rick really caught the travel bug. He started traveling to Europe with his family, actually, when he was a teenager. His father had some roots in Norway, so he was traveling then. And then when he got into college, he decided that he wanted to parlay that travel interest into a possible career. So he decided to join this big mainstream tour bus company. And one of the things with this gig was that he had to get at least 20 people to sign up for the tour in order for him to go for free. And he enjoyed that. He liked the efficiency of group travel, but he did learn from these particular bus companies that there were some downsides that he really didn't enjoy. One of them being that people were being trapped in hotels outside the city center, staying in places close to the airport where they had to buy excursions to get back into town. He also found that a lot of the guides were motivated financially by taking their tour members on shopping excursions where they could get kickbacks. So rather than taking them to cultural sightseeing events like going to the Rijksmuseum, instead these people would take them to diamond factories to buy stuff. So he really didn't like that. What Rick really wanted and felt was important about travel was to equip people with great information, teach them how to travel, teach them how to use public transportation, and give them the freedom to be able to make their own discoveries. So he felt that was the absolute core value of any sort of travel experience. With that, he decided to start his own company. So he started with some minivans, and what he did from there was he started a company that reflected his values and created his first tour company called Europe Through the Back Door. And with Europe Through the Back Door, he really was able to share Europe with his travelers. And many of the things that he liked to do were designed to create an environment that felt fun and explorative, but also gave people the safety to try new things. So one of that was through food. He would have picnics where you could try some of the local cuisine and not feel committed to try something that seemed a little bit odd or scary, and then just have a plate of something that you wouldn't want to eat. So
Gears, maybe.
yes,
Yeah.
like figures, exactly, exactly. We actually still do that today. A lot of times guides will buy a big plate of escargot, for example, for their group, so that 20 people can share one or two of them, see if they like them. If they do, they can order more. But it was just one of his fun ways of being able to share a cultural experience through food. He also, back in the day, would organize all of the accommodations. And those accommodations were very, very in his hippie style back in the 70s. So they would stay in youth hostels. And there was even one time we hear where there was of course, Munich had Oktoberfest going on, and Rick wanted to be in the thick of things. So they rented a tent where everybody slept in sleeping bags in that tent. Things eventually evolved. As I said, I started working for Rick in the 1990s, so I actually remember this time, these days when we would stay in Gimmelwald at Walter's Pension, Gimmelwald, and the deal was that couples would be able to stay in rooms with bathrooms down the hall, but single travelers would be up in the loft, sharing a loft together. And I'll tell you, one of my first tours in 1996, I shared the loft with a group of teenagers. I think it was 7 teenagers and me. And I survived to talk about it. And things evolved since then. And he eventually started realizing that staying in the city centers in European style hotels was the way to go. So since then, that's exactly what we've been doing. And he also decided to evolve a bit from the minivans to bigger tour buses so that his groups would have a little bit more room to spread out. We still do this today. We have groups of 24 to 28 people, and yet we always hire coaches that have at least 50 seats. So things have evolved. When I first started, there were about 15 to 20 of us that worked in the office. Actually, if you look at this picture, there are 6 or 7 of us that are still working in the office with Rick today. We went from this to now we have about 100 or so happy office staff that can't wait to share their travel expertise with tour members. I will say that this picture was, we all were wearing shirts for this picture. We actually don't have to wear any sort of uniform. And of course, we went from when Rick started guiding, it was just himself, and then he started hiring a few guides. When I was hired on, I think there were about 15 of us. And today, look at this. We've got over 150 guides that are based all over Europe, and even some from the US who love to teach travel. And the one thing that all of us have in common, office staff and guides, is we've really embraced that mission, the core values that Rick created when he created originally Europe Through the Back Door, which is now Rick Steves Europe.
Wow, what a history. What a long and storied history we have, Colleen. Incredible. And you've been here for not 2, 3 decades?
3 decades.
To see
when I was 14.
To see that arc is just so incredible, and amazing to see that we've really stuck true to that mission from day one. Our mission here at Rick Steves Europe is all about inspiring and informing, educating, and equipping Americans to have culturally broadening experiences in Europe, okay? And the beautiful thing is all of our tours stick to that identity as well. What I'd love to do is share a little bit now about for whom these tours are designed, who is right for a Rick Steves Europe tour. I got to tell you, those who bring a cultural curiosity, somebody who's ready to bridge cultural gaps, people who aren't necessarily looking for the next Starbucks Frappuccino or their next Big Mac. These people are the people who are looking for their next Starbucks Frappuccino probably should keep looking. I love to take my tour members to the local cafes and get off the beaten path away from American brands anytime we can when we're over in Europe. The most successful tour members are like cultural sponges. They're there to soak it all up. And the ones who are most successful, of course, are looking for Mm, Not necessarily comparing everything to how it is back at home, but to become a temporary local as you're traveling with us. So those of you who are young at heart, who are active and fit, and who are able to embrace these cultural differences with open arms, those are the ones who have the most fun on our tours. A key part of Rick's travel philosophy is points out that the more money you spend, oftentimes all that does is create bigger barriers between yourself and the culture that you're there to experience. We like to travel low to the ground. We try to connect with the local artisans and the restaurateurs and everybody else along the way to really get a sense of the true culture. And this is a shot from one of our groups in Venice, where we actually pop into a mask making workshop and get a demonstration by the maestro himself. He's the very charismatic looking guy there on the far end without a mask. Everybody else is taught about which of these masks represent what in Venetian theatrical tradition. And many people walk out of that demonstration calling that a highlight of this tour. On day one, you might show up and look to your left and your right and see a room full of strangers. But I want to point out that by the time we finish our tour, you've changed from a group of strangers into one big happy family on the road. It's so cool to see that each group meld as they go. On day 1 and 2 and 3, sure, you have kind of friendly, or family cliques, let's say, but by day 5, 6, 7, all of those people become friendly, of course, and that those connections are some of the strongest bonds that you make while on this tour. On all of my groups, I set up Facebook groups and invite everybody on the tour to join that. And it's remarkable. After 3, 4, 5 years, people are still talking in those Facebook groups, still planning about their travels for the next year, and still talking about travel ideas. And so to be able to facilitate that kind of energy is really rewarding as a tour guide, I got to say myself.
Absolutely. I have those same sort of groups.
Right?
They stay connected.
Nice. This is a shot from the notorious name game. Now, it has a bit of a reputation. You might have heard about the name game, but for me, as a Rick Steves tour guide, it's very important to learn everybody's name. And the only way I can do that personally is by just repetition. And so we go around the circle a few times, speaking everybody's name and introducing yourself. But for me, that helps me get to know you, and it breaks the ice a little bit more. So by the time we finish these tours, these are one big happy family on the road, like I was mentioning. This is a shot in front of one of our beautiful Haida Bloom buses. We work with a few different bus tour companies in Europe, and across the board, they're all very professional, very safe drivers. That's Peter there in the white shirt on the end. And another important point to make about who is right for these tours is the following. Our tours are all about connecting with the locals and the people that we interact with while we're in Europe. That includes the bus driver, the hoteliers, the restaurateurs. People who are right for our tour regard them as their own professional in their own right. These people aren't here to serve us, but they're just one other element of the experience that you get to enjoy and take back those warm memories of interpersonal connections with you back home. And for many, again, that's a great highlight of these tours. Smart travelers pack light. Whether you're traveling with us or not, smart travelers pack light. And I want to make a point. Look, as I mentioned, I'm heading out on Tuesday, and this is my bag. Yes, of course, it's empty right now, Colleen. I know. But this is the backpack I use for my time on the road. I pack everything I need in there. Layers in Europe are important, and I want to emphasize wool socks as well, okay?
But not in July.
In July, no, you can skip the wool socks in July. But wool socks keep you warm, and no matter if it's raining or you're sloshing through puddles. The point I want to make here is that our tours also use public transportation, all right? So we hop on the local trams, buses, metro, and the lighter you pack, the easier it is for you to get from the bus to the tram, up possibly 1 or 2 or 3 flights of stairs up to your room in the hotel. And so we've found year after year, the more reasonably light you pack, the better. Okay. And so if you need information and tips on what exactly to pack, you can find that online at ricksteves.com and on our YouTube page. All right, so our colleague, Lisa Friend, has made a number of our most popular videos that you can find on YouTube. And that's definitely one I would recommend, that packing light video, packing
Absolutely.
travel skills with Lisa Friend.
She packs far better than I do.
Yeah, we can all take some inspiration, right? What I like to do, just a little kind of personal tip here, is I lay everything out on my bed or my couch. I do mix and match, making sure that every shirt can work with every pair of pants and shorts I'm bringing, and vice versa. And then I go through a number of iterative rounds to take out stuff that I can live without for 3, 4 weeks at a time. And that's how I get down into these relatively small bags. But I promise, once you're on the road, it is well worth the effort. So we've talked a little bit about bringing the right mindset, embracing these kind of cultural differences, engaging with the locals that we meet along the way. These are all important elements and factors to Rick Steves Europe tours. Another point is we are very active on a day-to-day basis as well, both standing on our feet, going on walking tours through these amazing European cities, visiting world-class museums, but I personally love to take my tour members on optional walks and hikes throughout my bread and butter tour, The Best of Europe in 21 Days. This is a particularly special experience here. What you see above everybody's head there is Bundesrepublik Deutschland. We are crossing on foot from Austria into Germany at that point. And it's just a mountainous trail, no passport check or anything. We're staying in Austria, but our sights are in Germany that day. And so I ask our bus driver to drop us off just on one side of the border. We hike up and over a hill into Germany and see the Neuschwanstein Castle. Pretty darn cool. And as you can see, age is just a number in our groups. As long as you're active, healthy, and able to spend a few hours on your feet walking, these tours can be a wonderful experience. The way we structure our tours is making sure that we see all the key sites that you gotta see on any visit to Europe and any given country that you may be visiting temporarily. That means the Eiffel Tower in Paris, or we see the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre Museum, for example. We see the Roman Forum and the Pantheon in Rome, all of the cliche classic sites. Of course, we get lost in the canals of Venice anytime our tours go there. But we also like to get off the beaten path. So Venice, Florence, Rome, Paris, London, those are always going to be swamped with tourists. But our packages, our tours, give you a chance to get off the beaten path, see a little bit, of a hidden side, let's say, of Europe. And it gives us a breather, a little break, a mental break from the crowds and the hustle and bustle. But we get to check out these towns that are just as fascinating as any of their bigger counterparts, let's say. This is Bacharach, and we'll be coming back to this village later in this little chat that we're doing this evening. And a little bridge in Rothenburg with not a tourist in sight. Our local guides take you out of the city centers and off on these side walks where we get to come face to face with things like the vineyard and wine production culture in this town of Bacharach. So pretty darn cool, if I say so myself. And a highlight, for me at least, is to come out the next day to the parking lot where we're meeting our bus to take us on to the next wonderful place and look around and there's not another bus in sight. That means our tour group was the only one in that village or town the evening before. And it just shows what a special formula that we found here at Rick Steves Europe that I feel like is quite successful. And if you read the reviews on our website as well, you'll be able to get a good sense of that too. So considering that I've outlined some of the key points to keep in mind for those who are considering traveling with us, I'd like to say, don't just take it from Colleen and I, let's hear it from the tour members themselves. So our colleague Lisa Friend had an online chat with some tour alumni, and I'd like to pass it back to Gabe, who will then start this video and will join in a little bit.
Hello, I have the pleasure to introduce to you and interview this evening my former tour members and now good friends. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Heather, I'm Michelle.
and they are 9-time alums. So we came to them to get the skinny for you tonight on the Tours 101 information session. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you who your favorite guide was, but it better be me because I know where you live.
I mean, shall we just say besides you, or?
Sure. Or, if you don't want to be indiscreet, you just want to say, what were some of the qualities of the guide that you enjoyed the most?
A great question. Well, basically, all the guides are super friendly, super informative, but also at the same time, they're laid back. But as much as they're laid back, they keep us on schedule so that we don't miss an admission time or a breakfast or a dinner, or what have you, whatever we're doing that day. And they're just super nice.
And I think that, we've been on enough tours so that I can recognize that the tour guides have been fantastic, and there have been some that I've connected with more, kind of their style and their personality. So I'm happy to say that one of my favorite folks that we've traveled with is Alfio. We did a Sicily tour with Alfio. And one of the things, this happens on every tour, but he evidently put a lot of thought into what happened on the bus in terms of learning opportunities, in terms of the lectures that he gave.
How would you describe the Rick Steves Europe style of travel to someone who's never been on one of our tours?
You should go.
I've talked about him a lot, and what I say is that there's a lot of opportunity built in for you to do what you're interested in. So, one of the things that I so much appreciate about it, we'll probably talk about this later, is the transportation piece being taken care of. So you don't have to kind of worry about the headache of that. And then what I'll say to folks is, like, you do something together as a group in the morning, but maybe by 11:30 or 1, you're free. And then you can go do whatever you want. And some people want to take a nap, and some people want to walk around the battlements, and some people, like me, want to go see 6 art museums. So, that's the thing that I say. It's like it is an organized tour, but there's still a lot of flexibility within it to focus on your style or your pace or your interests.
Yep.
What would you like to tell first-time tour members, or what would you like them to know? And then the other thing is, what was your biggest apprehension before your first Rick Steves tour?
I think just to go back briefly, and we can just chat about this. I think they should read. They should read. Don't take the approach that they're just gonna get on a bus and be carted off to a beautiful place, because you're going to go to the beautiful place, but you need to know what you want to see and what you want to do in that place. And it sometimes astonishes me how sometimes folks won't know where we're going tomorrow, and if that's their travel style, that is great. It isn't mine, but yeah, that would be the thing. Read or listen. Yeah.
But that said, the tour guides give you information. Like, if you showed up on a tour without any preparation,
you'll be fine.
Yes. And the tour guides provide really clear communication about what's happening that day and the next day, and some options about how to spend your time. So it sort of feels like tour guides come in with the expectation that folks are not necessarily going to know what they want to do that day, and they work to provide good options. So that's fantastic.
I love our alumni.
Yeah, me too. And Colleen, they raised some really good points. Our packages provide a great foundation for you to have an unforgettable trip through Europe. You can be totally passive and have a very good time. To make this a great trip, an excellent trip, an unforgettable, a life-changing experience, do your homework at a time. Read, watch the shows, listen to the podcasts, because then once you get to Florence, you know that just how important Oltrarno is to that town, or what a big deal the Duomo is, or where to find the best gelato.
Exactly.
So, these books, the more you read and the more research you do, the better time you can possibly
We
have.
offer so many tools. So we have our guidebooks. We also have the Rick Steves audio app, where you can listen to interviews by local guides or our Rick Steves guides, or any sort of local expert. You can also go into a museum and have Rick in your ear, or go on a walking tour and have Rick in your ear. So we have a lot of those types of resources that our alumni have learned.
It's true. I'm walking through St. Peter's Basilica and I hear my dad's voice over there, my dad's voice over there, my dad's voice over there. It's kind of trippy, but it means it's a very popular tool. And Rick Steves Audio Europe is an app that you can find in the App Store or in the Android Play Store. Download that and everything there is free, whether you're on a tour or traveling independently. It's just one more tool that we're happy to share with travelers for free.
Exactly. And just to go back to the alumni thing, I love it when I'm going on tour, and at the welcome meeting, I often ask people, if you want to share if you've been on a Rick Steves tour before, please do. And I often get alumni, 4, 5, 6 alumni, sometimes half the group are alumni. And it's not just 1 or 2 tours that they've done. Some of them, it becomes like a competition. I've done 9, I've done 8.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
True.
So we should probably get back to sharing more information.
You
What
know,
do
us
think?
tour guys, we can talk till the cows come home.
To chat. Okay. So let's see, share, and we're back on. All right. So
Nice.
now let's talk about what makes our tours unique. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts first. So all of our group sightseeing is included. So if we are going to, we like to see the most important sites in cities and towns. And so whatever we list as included in our itinerary, that's something that you've already paid for with the tour. Our groups are small. We've got between 24 and 28 people in a tour, depending on the itinerary. You're going to have your Rick Steves guide there from beginning and end. And you're also going to have a lot of local experts joining you for walking tours, museum tours, to share their expertise. We have accommodations that are all very centrally located. Our breakfasts are all included in half of our meals. And what I absolutely love is that the tips are included for your guides, your drivers. That's all been covered by your tour, so you don't have to worry about any of that yourself, as well as, your guidebook and your money belt, that sort of thing. So let me just tell you, I think one of the things that make our tour so special and so unique, I might be slightly biased, of course, but it's our guides that are really the secret sauce to our tours. They're the heart and soul of our tours, and they're the ones who really help to create the magic. They're there from the beginning of the tour to the end of the tour, and they are so passionate about making sure that you really are enjoying your time.
And here, if you look at this picture, Colleen and I can pick out people we know. You have Germans, Spanish, Portuguese, Italians, Sicilians, Dutch, Scottish, Irish, Bulgarian, Turkish. Just it's
The whole
what an
European
incredible
continent.
kaleidoscope of engaged tour guides that are just amazing individuals.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I find is so unique about our company is Rick is so passionate about teaching his travel philosophy to all of us, is that once a year, he brings all of the guides to Edmonds. Tiny little Edmonds is just inundated with Europeans and American guides, even a couple of Australians come in. And we spend an intense week together sharing information, learning the travel philosophy if they're new to the company, or just sharing our time together. We really are like one big family, and it's just infectious. I think our whole idea, our passion for the mission of the company really is infectious with these get-togethers. And it's not just in Edmonds. When we're on the road, many times during our free evenings, if we see other guides that are in town, we'll get together, and we're really boring for anybody who comes up to talk to us, because all we want to do is talk tour. And we're sharing information about travel tips and itinerary tips and ways to teach one another. So we might be sharing some information or suggestions on how to best teach the history of Venice, or how to build a Gothic pyramid out of our tour members. I like to do that one a lot.
Yes.
And of course, you can't forget our local guides. We choose local guides who are local experts, who are the voice of the city, of the country that we're visiting. And they're really passionate about what they do. They understand our style of travel. They embrace that, and they really connect with our groups. And many of our groups find that that time they spend with our local guides is a way for them to meet a new European friend. It's really, we're very, very particular. I work in tour operations, and we're very particular about hiring the type of guide that is the best fit for our company and for our groups. Now, our jobs may seem pretty darn exotic, But, there's the behind the scenes stuff too that goes on. Whether you're a local guide or a Rick Steves guide, the one thing we all have in common is we're obsessed with tour logistics. So when you have some free time and you're off doing your thing, we're usually on our phone planning and confirming reservations. So it sounds great and we love it. It really is.
It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and you and I, that is what we do as a profession. So we do it, we love it. But for the tour members, it really maximizes their time on the ground in Europe. We know that people save up a lot of money and time in order to travel in Europe with us. And so we take that as a big responsibility, of course, to maximize that as much as possible.
Absolutely. And we can't forget another unique part of our groups is just how important our driver and our coach is to the tour. Where other companies may have the driver sit separately at meals and not spend as much time with the group, we really invite the driver in and we want them to be a part of the group. They have dinner with us. Sometimes some of the drivers will even want to go on some of the activities or hikes with us, which is a lot of fun. And our drivers will get us to each destination. So let's talk for a moment about hotels. So the hotels that we choose really vary. The one thing that they all have in common is that they are centrally located for the town or city or countryside that they should be in. So for example, if we're staying in a city, they're going to be right in the heart of the historic center. If we're in a small town, they'll be in the town. They won't be outside of the town. So, and they all have a very European flavor to them, European charm, because our mission is to make sure that you feel like a temporary European when you're traveling. So for example, if we're staying out in the countryside, we're going to choose a beautiful farmhouse or agricultural farmhouse in agriturismo for you. Or if we're in the city center, we're going to choose a family-run hotel whenever possible. They're all going to be in locations, whether you are staring out at the lake or getting a beautiful vista or view of the mountains, they're going to be in locations where you can enjoy those views. The one very important key thing, though, is Andy already showed you the bag that he brings. We make sure that we emphasize that people need to travel light. And one of the main reasons for that is that if we're located in the city center and we've got a great big coach that fits 55 people, guess what? That coach is not going to be making it into the city center of some of these small towns. So we may have to walk a few blocks, and we don't have a porter service where we're going to be having a porter come and get your bags and bring your bags to the hotel. So you have to be packing light enough that you can bring your bags yourself. And so on those cobblestones, we often hear our suitcases rumble by. We like to call it the Rick Steves rumble as we are getting to our hotel. And once we get to the hotel, it might also mean that you're climbing a few stairs to get up there. So you definitely want to prepare in advance and make sure that you have not overpacked. You don't need to have a change of outfit for every single day of the week. When we get to the hotel, you will always find welcoming, friendly local staff that really are also an important part of our tours. Many of them we've known for years. For example, this photo here is taken with a great friend of mine, Roberto from Venice, who owns a hotel there. I met him back in the 90s when I was traveling. He and his wife had just had a little boy named Filippo. Well, this is Filippo today, and he is now in the travel business. So we continue these friendships, and these vendor relationships really evolve.
I think when I was 6 years old, I was playing soccer with him in the squares in Venice. So it really is generations, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's wonderful. So the hotel rooms, of course, they vary by location, whether you're in a countryside farmhouse or you're in a city center, but we want to make sure that we're always staying in European style hotels. So we could stay in those very generic, large American style hotels out by the airport, but we don't want to do that. We want to be temporary Europeans. So we will be staying in places where we might actually sort of challenge your comfort zone a little bit. So for example, if we're staying in a European hotel that is in a building that is over 300 or 400 years old, guess what? The bathrooms are not going to be the size of what we're used to in the States. So, these hoteliers have really gotten creative trying to accommodate our modern day needs. So you will find that you've got, a private bath in your room, but your shower might be the size of a telephone booth.
It's true.
It's just the way it is. So we would like to share with you the perspective of some of our tour members and their experience on the comfy and quaint hotels that we use. Gabe, would you mind sharing that with everyone?
You know, I've stayed in some of the best hotels in the country, in the United States. And you walk in and you say, oh, this is nice. I've stayed in a lot of these hotels on the tour, and when you look back a few years later, I can't remember the five-star hotels, which was which, but I remember these hotels because of the charm.
The hotels on this tour were great, always well kept, fabulous staff, always clean. Some were, you know, a little more modern, but then we'd stay in some local ones that had a lot of character.
They've been very unique. They haven't been same old same. You don't feel like you're stuck in an American hotel. You definitely feel like you're in a local hotel and with a very European flavor.
They've all been smaller hotels, which I like. It's not the cookie cutter, you know, American hotels transplanted to Europe. They've all felt very, very authentic to the regions and to the areas.
One thing is always the same, and that's that they're in some way unique.
They're going to be a little bit different than what people would experience in the U.S. Sometimes they're going to have stairs, sometimes they're going to have really small elevators.
I like that they're not super commercialized. They're really kind of intimate, so the staff is really friendly.
They give you a feeling of a private home, which is very, very nice.
The employees, they are working in the same hotel for many years. It's a bit like a family.
For the most part, they're always going to be central. We really place an emphasis on that, being well located, close to different sites, but also close to public transportation.
They are located in the heart of the area that you want to be in. Just like with real estate, location is the most important thing for a hotel, particularly when you're in a town for 2 days. You need to be where the action is and where you can get to the major sites conveniently and easily.
So I absolutely agree with all of that. So let's talk about the activity levels of our tours. So we intentionally will build days where you have certain days where there are a lot of included activities, a lot of group time, and then other days where you're going to have more independent time for your own personal sightseeing choices. The one thing you want to do is when you're looking at the itineraries, take a look at that activity level. So you'll have an idea of what to anticipate. So we'll rate them anywhere. We'll tell you approximately how many miles you'll be walking and just give you an idea of what the day-to-day activity level is for those tours. And the one thing that I will say is that traveling as a group, it really makes you feel like it gives people the sense of confidence to be able to try new things, risk new things. And we all feel, like Andy said earlier, like one big happy family. We may have started off feeling like a group of strangers, and by the end of the tour, you truly do feel like that family. And when we're building these itineraries, no 2 days are the same. So there may be one day when you're out in the field and you're conquering a castle, and another day where we are going to be visiting museums with local experts. We will, no matter what, they'll be getting you up early, because what we want to do is try our best to avoid these sorts of crowds. So for any sort of museum or big sightseeing activity, very famous sightseeing activity, we're going to try and get there either really early in the morning or late in the afternoon to avoid some of that. We'll also want to take you to visit some local artisans to understand the flavor of what is important to the culture and the country that we're visiting. And during that free time, we're going to tell you about the neighborhoods or places that you can go to where you can really experience the local culture and maybe meet a European friend along the way. When it comes to our tours, you are never going to go hungry. We always make sure that we incorporate the food, we introduce the food. It's such a huge part of every country and every European culture. So whether we decide to organize a cooking class where you make your own meal and then eat it later, or your guide is taking you out to a local hotspot, we really want to make sure that we spend that time teaching you about the local cuisine and local food. Again, I can't emphasize enough, our tours are very active tours. So it may seem at times it's like, oh yeah, we're walking 2 or 3 miles, I can do that. Make sure as you're planning for these trips and you're planning your activity level to remember that we also walk a lot of stairs. Europe just doesn't have the escalators and the elevators that we're used to at home. So a lot of times, even on our walking tours, there'll be a lot of walking. And there are going to be times when we're on certain itineraries where we're going to take you through meadows to conquer that castle. So make sure you're wearing some really practical walking shoes along the way as well. And your local guides are definitely going to prepare you for all of this. So they're going to give you information as far as what to plan on for the following day. That said, we're all human, so there will be days when you may not have listened or you don't remember what the guide said. So for example, a day where we say, you absolutely cannot have your knees and shoulders covered because we're going into a basilica. Well, things happen. So the wonderful thing about traveling with a group is it's amazing how everybody comes together as a family and they will problem solve for you like they did with Andy over here. His name was Andy too.
Andy's always trouble.
Yes. So it's one big happy family on these tours. It may be a dysfunctional family at times, but it's still a family.
We're there for each other though, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So Colleen and I have outlined a little bit about the history of the tour, what makes our tours unique, and who these tours are right for. And you might feel a little overwhelmed as to there's so many choices. How can you possibly pick the right tour for you? How do you sort this bundle of spaghetti in front of you and pick exactly the right adventure for you? This is just a visual map of all the different itineraries that we have available at ricksteves.com. So be sure to go in and poke around a little bit. I'd like to break down the structure of our 4 different kind of categories of tours, if you will. We have best of tours, we have heart of tours, we have city tours, city packages, and my way adventures. All right, so let's dibble dabble in a little bit of each of these. Personally, I lead the Best of Europe in 21 days. That's 3 weeks around. Imagine that. It's incredible. This is the flagship itinerary of the company. And when I look back at my dad's journals and early days of running his tours, the itinerary has changed very little in 40 years. So just spectacular to see how true we've stuck to our mission and our travel philosophy, and also how this itinerary has just improved in little tweaks and adjustments over time. This is a 3-week itinerary and we're moving every other day. So in terms of activity, this takes the crop here. So we start in Haarlem, a suburb of Amsterdam. We continue all the way down to Rome and back up to Paris, moving every other day. Every other day is a bus day, essentially, and you're spending 5-6 hours on the bus. But we make a point to stop along the way every 2 hours and make sure that we build in time for restrooms. I am also very clear to communicate to my tour members where along the way is the best spot to do laundry. Okay. So yes, while you're packing light, you got to remember that you got to look for laundry stops along the way, right? So every few days, I'm making a point to communicate to my tour members where and when is a good time to do laundry along the way, because I know that's an important component to your time in Europe. On these Best of Europe tours, yes, we pack in a ton of cultural sites, many museums. We take photos of the most the most popular spots along the way, of course. But I want to say the most memorable parts of your tour are going to be the people that you meet along the way. All right. So whether it's Elizabeth in Paris or Frank in Austria banging away on his accordion, or Alessandro in Venice, these interpersonal connections you meet are going to be the ones that you remember as you go home. All right. So the Best of tours kind of do a sampler platter of the various, cultures along the way. Your heart of tours take a much slower pace. And instead of going one stop on to the next, you're spending a little more time in each spot along the way and a few less hours on the bus, which could be considered an actual vacation. The Best of Europe tour, that's serious travel.
That's a commitment.
Yeah, exactly. The heart of tours slow down a little bit and you have more time to get hands-on cooking experiences, visit those artisans that Colleen was talking about, and trying some of the delicious food and smelling the metaphorical roses along the way. So Paris and the heart of France is just another great example of our heart of style of tours. Okay, so we've talked about Best of Europe, Best of tours, your heart of tours. Let's talk a bit about our city tours. We have 4 itineraries. That's London, Paris, Istanbul, and Rome, all cities that deserve a full week at least in each of these in these cities. London is one of my favorite on the planet, and you get to stay in the same hotel for 7 days, relative luxury compared to, the Best of Europe tour. And your local guide there is full time to take you through the most important touristy sites, but also get you off the beaten path and into more interesting farmers markets, get out of the city center, and give you a well-rounded experience of these world-class cities: London, Rome, Paris, and Istanbul. We combine a couple cities in order to make a Best of Prague and Budapest, for example. In Budapest, you have these world-class hot springs, these hot springs that come out of the ground, and they've built up these beautiful bath complexes around to just enjoy. So be sure, that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm anytime in Hungary there. Venice, Florence, Rome, which I'll be leading in just a few days here. And then our My Way adventures. Consider these kind of a DIY, or create your own adventure. So your My Way package includes your hotel and your transportation, and a local tour manager who sits at the breakfast table 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day, who's your kind of included
travel consultant.
Yeah, exactly. Your travel advisor, who's making recommendations for you so that you can see all the sites that you want to see, or maybe you just want to lay by the pool all day. So that way it's a great one size fits all. If you have somebody in your family who likes to hike 12 miles a day, but somebody else in your family who just likes to, lays out a little bit, this is a potential good fit for you, because then everybody can do exactly what you're interested in. So there's a My Way Alpine adventure through the Alps. You have My Way Italy, seeing the most incredible sights there in Italy. And last but not least, be sure to check out our family itinerary if you have young ones in your family. My sister and I, woe is us, we grew up on these tours, which definitely weren't designed for young ones, but our family tours are a new addition in the last, several years, maybe a decade or so. And they're designed with the young ones in mind. So we hand select guides who are talented at bringing this history to life in front of our eyes. This gives us a good chance to really connect with our family, pack all 4 of us on a gondola, for example, in Venice. And you'll find by the end of the tour, your young one has a dozen new friends to stay in touch with when you go back to school in the fall. So that's a great way to make it a fun adventure while everybody's having a good time along the way. Whether you book our Best of, our Heart of, our city tours, or our My Way adventures, be sure to read all the information that we post in the booking process. Very important that everybody, that includes not just you, but the people you're booking for, understand all the different important factors, including no grumps allowed on our tours. So be sure you give a chance to everybody in your traveling group to read through the fine print, if you want to call it that. So we've thrown quite a lot at you. And another thing we'd like to talk about is when to go to Europe. So Europe, of course, has seasons. It's hot in the summer and cold and rainy in the winter. It's similar in a lot of ways to the gradients that you see in the States. Maine is a frozen tundra in the winter, but nice and toasty in the summer, whereas Florida's hot year round. You can make correlations, Florida to Sicily, for example, Maine to Northern Europe, and so on. When to go can affect your experience. For example, in Northern Europe, go there in the summer. And in Southern Europe, if you're concerned about the heat, stick to the springtime and fall and winters. So when you go to Northern Europe in the summer, then you're enjoying those longer days and the sunny weather. In the summer, of course, you're dealing with more crowds, but you also have many more festivals and events you can check out. And it really turns Europeans turn their cities into their living rooms. And everybody goes out and has some wine on the riverbanks and so on. It's really nice to just go get a cheap, or expensive, you're on vacation, go for it, bottle of wine at the grocery store or the enoteca, and bring it out and enjoy these just amazing views for free right in front of you.
So many vistas.
Right? Just nonstop. And if you're into, for example, paying attention to the seasons as it relates to agriculture, consider going in the fall when there's all sorts of wine festivals happening, as well as things like Oktoberfest too.
Another cool thing to mention is that sometimes we will tweak an itinerary if there's something really important happening at a specific time of year. We know, for example, that in the Netherlands there is the Keukenhof Gardens, which are in southern um, Holland, and we will tweak our itinerary slightly so that our groups can visit Keukenhof during that time when the flowers are in display. It's just a few short weeks out of the year, but we'll make some adjustments so that that can happen.
Worth it, and quite a Technicolor experience, right?
Yes.
And in the winters, you have these beautiful Christmas markets popping up all over Germanic Europe, especially. So if you're thinking about going in November, December, keep your eyes open for that, and be sure to try some mulled wine, which is really tasty.
Nice. So what I think would be really important now, because we've talked so much about what makes us unique, what tours are right for you, I really would love to share some of our favorite days in the life. But I think before we start talking about it, it would be wonderful to get the opinion of one of our local guides.
Smart.
So I'm going to hand it over to you, Gabe.
Ciao, hello, my name is David Tordi. I'm a Rick Steves tour guide, and welcome to Orvieto, my hometown, which is one of the most beautiful hill towns of Italy.
One of the beautiful things of walking the streets of Orvieto is you feel like lost in a labyrinth, in a maze, but you're not really lost. It's full of so many hidden corners, hidden gems, not only the highlights, the Duomo and St. Patrick's Well, but many places like this one, this beautiful side alley where it's only residential, there's no shops, nothing, just homes, incredible architecture and history. It's a town that breathes history. Rick Steves and I share the same travel philosophy and lifestyle philosophy. What we really try to do is to broaden people's perspective on a new culture. We get together with the locals, we get to meet them. We often go to their homes, to their working places. They share their life, their culture, their traditions with us. And a few hour experience is something magical, unique, an experience that we will never forget. Now we are inside a private residency, a medieval courtyard with an incredible colonnade. The colonnade is made of ancient Roman columns coming from original Roman villas from the outskirts of Orvieto. And the unique feature is that each column is different from the other because they all belong to different villas. One of the things that I really love about tours with Rick Steves is the bonding that happens from the very first day, and the fact that people tend to become really close friends and have a great time in the future, even after the tour is over. Here we are in the oldest part of my hometown, Orvieto, the ancient medieval quarter, where we can actually see with our own eyes a layer cake of civilizations built on top of civilizations, since the Etruscan times all the way to modern times. Showing somebody Orvieto for the first time, for me, it's an emotion every time, because people come visit where I was born and raised. It's beautiful to see people's reaction in their faces, how they open up to a new culture. I love introducing my local people to my new tour members. Everyone doesn't know what to expect, and there's an incredible form of respect and appreciation of each other. And that's just part of the magic of guiding a tour.
I love that.
David's a great guy. And did you know he is in a rock band, actually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a musician as well. The man has many talents.
When he comes to town, he brings the guitar and just strums it out. It's so cool to see him.
So I am going to share with you one of my favorite days. I do want to let all of you know, though, you are spending the evening with two tour guides who like to talk a lot. So we're running a little bit behind, but I promise you we are going to get to your to Q&As in 10 minutes time. The day that I'm going to share with you is Rome. And I love to share Rome because it is my very favorite city in all of Europe. It just has so many things to offer. And now it's not going forward.
In the screen?
Uh-oh. Okay, wait. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
All right, there we go. Okay, it has so many things to offer. Romans actually like to call their city a slice of lasagna. And it's just amazing going around one corner to the next and seeing all these building materials that are recycled from one century to another. Now, before we get started on Rome, though, I think one of the things that we really need to acknowledge is a major important historical event that took place today in Rome in the Vatican City. And that is that the Catholic world is celebrating a new pope, and it happens to be an American pope.
Habemus Papam.
So it will be Pope Leo the 14th, which is very exciting. And it was so much fun today seeing all the images from Rome of people just so emotional and so excited about the new spiritual leader of the world. So just wanted, of course, to mention that for a moment. And as we get started on my favorite day, the one thing that I wanted to note is that when you're on a tour, every single day, your tour guide is going to post a schedule of that day's itinerary so that you can plan ahead. It's usually posted the night before. You can take a picture of it, but it is a way for you to know what to anticipate for that day ahead. And we'll give you an idea of how much group time there's going to be, how much free time there's going to be, and it's a great tool and resource for you. So on any itinerary, including this one that starts in Rome, we'd like to get started early. So our day is going to start about, we'll have breakfast, say at 7 o'clock. We'll start a day around 8. And it's a great time to see Rome because Rome is just waking up and it's quiet at that time. And it's just a wonderful way to introduce yourself to any new place. Then, of course, your guide is going to make sure that they teach you how to get around a city. And in Rome, we're going to teach you how to use the metro system. And we're going to make it a fun experience so that when you have some free time on your own later, you can use that public transportation and will be able to navigate the city on your own. We're going to start off with meeting our local guide at the Colosseum. And our local guide is going to share with us the importance of this ancient Roman structure that was built in 80 AD. We're going to walk around the structure and through and up to ancient Rome. And as we're going through the Arch of Titus, we'll be continuing on into the Forum. And in the Forum, this is where it is so key to have a great local guide who's going to be able to share all of the stories and the history of this fabulous monument and just bring ancient Rome to life. And not only bring ancient Rome to life, but tie ancient Rome with present day. I think that it's a great way for us to make those cultural connections and historical connections. Then we're going to continue through the Forum, and as we're walking through the Historic Center, we'll be passing by these kinds of scenes. I love this about Rome. Of course, the Romans know that their city is built on layers and layers of history, and they certainly appreciate it, but at the same time, it's a living city. So it's great to be able to go into these piazzas and see these kids playing soccer, and in the backdrop, you've got the ancient Pantheon, and right next to the soccer ball, you have an Egyptian obelisk and that has been incorporated into a statue by Bernini from the Baroque era of the late 16th century, early 17th century. So it's no other place in the world has those types of layers. Exactly. And our local guide's going to continue and take us to the Pantheon. Speaking of ancient structures, the Pantheon is probably the most fully intact Roman structure that I can think of. I mean, the foundations of it were started by Agrippa in 27 BC. There was a fire in 80 AD that brought it to the ground, and it was Hadrian from 118 to 125 AD who commissioned the building of this new Pantheon that is the Temple to the Gods. And you'll be able to go inside and just see the magnificence of this structure, be able to look up at the oculus that is 30 feet in diameter, which is called the window to the heavens, and just be able to appreciate that this is a fully intact Roman structure that was preserved because of the fact that after the fall of Rome, in the 600s, they converted this into a church. So it wasn't recycled and repurposed. So after this, we've had a full morning, and what we're going to do is set you free for a little bit to explore Rome on your own. Your local guide, or your Rick Steves guide, is going to give you some suggestions and tips on how you can spend your day. You might want to walk around along the Tiber. You might make reservations to go over to see Vatican City. But whatever it is, you'll have the map and the tools necessary to explore on your own. And then later on that evening, we're all going to regroup and meet up again and share our stories about what we did through the day, or share our thoughts on how that walking tour is with the local guide. and we'll have some great Roman cuisine and some wine and just share our day. And the day doesn't end there. After dinner, we're going to continue on and we're going to do a night walk of Rome through all of the famous piazzas and around the fountains. This is Piazza Navona, where you'll be able to see the Four Rivers Fountain and people watch and see everybody coming in together along these wonderful piazzas. Then over to the Trevi Fountain, where you can throw a coin in the fountain to make sure that you return to Rome. And maybe stop and get some roasted chestnuts, which, by the way, this guy is out year round. You want roasted?
I recognize them.
Yep. You want roasted chestnuts in July? You got them. And then we're going to end our walk at the Spanish Steps, where again you'll see everybody out seeing and being seen. And then we're going to walk on, to our rooms, collapse in our rooms, and reflect on how amazing that day was. I know, it's a big one.
What a day. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, so that was one of your favorite days on tour in Rome, huh?
Yes.
One of my personal favorite days is day 4 on the itinerary that I lead of the Best of Europe in 21 days. Bacharach is a town where we spend 2 nights, and it's a little village perched on a bend in the Rhine River Valley. Immensely important through history, from Roman times into medieval and all the way up till today. And our local guide that we go on and explore on a local walking tour brings all this to life for us. You can find this day described in online at ricksteves.com. Just find that itinerary and look up day 4 in order to follow along. Our local guide Thomas is actually also the mayor of Bacharach, and so it's so fun to get his personal take on this town's history. He has some very interesting local connections as we wander among these half-timbered homes, and then he takes us up into the vineyards above town, and we learn about the wine making tradition of this region as well, where we can actually put our hand on the warm tile that or slate that makes this region so productive for grape production. Then we find Peter, our wonderful bus driver, and hop on the bus for 15 minutes where we go downriver to the next town called Sant-Guar, where we stop for a tasty lunch with brats and potatoes and
overcooked vegetables.
Of course, overcooked vegetables. Throw in a lager and some mustard, and you've got your lovely German lunch. We take that with our that lovely food with us up the hill, and we conquer this castle called Rheinfels, and we go on a tour of these castle ruins with a local guide and a key who takes us behind locks and gates, and we get to see the passageways and the architecture of this building, and it is so well preserved. It's just amazing to tour. One of the guides is very musical, and he brings a guitar along and sings to us in this huge cavern that was previously held banquets, and that sound and the visual helps us recreate in our imagination what it must have looked like several hundred years ago. So cool to check that out. And this is all practically just about lunchtime. Now, we wrap up our tour of the castle at the top of the hill with just enough time to walk down, stop for a local treat at one of the many ice cafes on the main drag, and then we catch a ferry that takes us back to our town for the evening. This is Heike, who gives us our tickets and a warm wave goodbye while we hop on a river ferry with a bar on board, and I call this a cruise just long enough for 2 beers. It's perfect.
Or 2 glasses of wine.
Or 2 glasses of wine for sure. Now, we watch these medieval and Renaissance castles drift by as we work our way upstream, and we pull up right up to Bacharach. Now, in September, October, there's some wine festivals happening further upstream. I made a game time decision with my last tour group in September, and I said, guys, if you've had enough for today, you can call it a day, walk on off at Bacharach. But for anybody who wants, stay on board. We're going to continue up to Bingen, where there is an annual wine festival that celebrates the harvest of the grapes and the wine production process starting around that time in the fall. and we enjoy our glasses of wine sampling the local production under a canopy of fireworks. So what a cool day to speak of and to describe here. And then we make our way back home, and this is actually the hotel that we stay in, that beautiful Hotel Altkolnischerhof, right on the main square of town. So we're throwing a lot at you, but this is a day to remember on tour, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And lastly, I think very quickly, let's just describe what a day is like on a tour that we shared together, which was the Best of Europe tour, where you've got the option of some organized walks with your guide and your group, or you can spend all of your time just hiking independently.
That's right. That's right. So we wake up in a hotel with a view like this. Now, Colleen and I are the guide, so we usually get a room the size of a closet in the back of the hotel or in the basement.
Right.
But many tour members get this view out of their bedroom window. No promises. It's, nothing can be guaranteed based on room distribution and so on from one visit to the next. But the views out of the windows of these hotels that we stay at are just breathtaking. This is a shot from the breakfast room, actually. So whether or not you have a view in your room, you get to come down and have a lovely breakfast with that.
Always views somewhere.
Exactly. And then we hop on one of the first lifts up to the Schildhorn, which makes an appearance in, if anybody's a 007 fan, in Her Majesty's Secret Service. And we just take in the panoramic views of that, spend an hour and a half or so, 2 hours up there with these spectacular views and learning all about this region of Switzerland. We take an hour or so down back in town for lunch. I recommend hitting the grocery store. It's a great budget-friendly option. Then we meet back up and go on an easy stroll of a hike, mostly horizontal, thankfully. No straight up or down, but mostly horizontal. We say hi to the cows along the way and actually make a stop in a honesty store. The thing about this is it's an honesty shop that is selling freshly made milk, cheese, chocolates, and yogurts that are made from these very cows. So pretty darn cool for an afternoon walk through the Swiss Alps. And my favorite way to cap the day, this particular day, is hanging out at the local sports center, which has a outdoor hot tub. You can't beat that view, Colleen.
No, not at all. And, just as a quick example of other options is on the other side of the valley, you can actually take the train up to an area that is the Madeleine Kleine Scheidegg hike. And it's one of my favorite things to do as well. And one of the things, my incentive is you get up to those mountain lodges, you can have some wonderful roasty, which to me is like a Denny's Grand Slam breakfast in a skillet, and a big cold glass of beer, and it's heaven on earth. And then, of course, while you're up there, you might run into some music culture, and there's the tradition of the Alpine horns, and quite often they're playing at the restaurants in the area. But regardless of how you spend your day, it is just a great example of another type of experience on our tours with all sorts of options for you, for the independent-minded or those who want to spend more time with the group. So let's talk about, if you like all this, what do you have to do next?
Okay. All right. So for those of you who are with us, let's say we've totally knocked your socks off and you're like, where do I sign up? You got to sign up on our website. Can you call in to sign up for our tours? No, you can't call in. We want you to go to the website, ricksteves.com, and follow this particular process. Here's what I did. I did a little screen grab here, a screen recording, and I'm going to walk you through it over the next couple minutes here. So ricksteves.com, on our homepage, you can find a number of excellent travel resources. You can look up our travel tips where you'll find dozens of articles, or duck into the forum with thousands of people commenting and sharing other travel information. Tonight, we're talking about our tours. So think about clicking on our tours. In this column, you can organize by year, you can look by country, or perhaps what's most important to you is the structure of the tour. So say if you just want to park yourself in Paris for a week, great, check out our city tours. Maybe you're traveling with young ones, look at our family itineraries. My Way Adventures allow you to create your own trip and experience as you go through. So those are all different factors to think about. But use the tool search, that next tab search, in order to really drill down to the specific itineraries that you're interested in. Whatever is top of mind for you, say it's your budget or the number of days you have or the particular country you want to visit, these are all things that you can search for on the website there just by clicking on that search tab. Say that your departure date is the most important factor of considering one of these tours. So go ahead and click on See Tours by Departure. Go up and select our 2026 tours or whatever year that you're interested in. And perhaps that, for example, next year, you're free after Labor Day. So go ahead and click September, sort our departures by date over there by clicking on Begin. Then you can go down and find exactly the itinerary you'd enjoy most by departure date, okay? So maybe the departure date is the most important element, and from there you can drill down to exactly what tour is best for you. Once you click the itinerary, you can see our marketing language, how we describe the tour. You can also see a graphic of that outlay or the where this tour is going to visit on the itinerary. Don't forget to look at the activity level. And then you can get really into the details, looking about dates, prices, exactly what's included. You can look up reviews and so on. What's included, as a company, we are very transparent about exactly what you can expect, and we do not hide what is not included. We do not include your flights from the States over to Europe. You got to search for those and find those and book those yourself. We are not a travel agency. We are a tour company. Here you can read day by day, drill down to exactly what you do on each day. And Colleen and I have been talking your ear off all night, okay? So you've heard it from us enough, but I recommend go ahead and check out the reviews. With the reviews, you hear from other people what the travel was actually like. So if you look at those reviews, listen to us, check out our YouTube, read our books, listen to the podcast, look up Rick's articles and so on, then you have a very well-rounded picture of what our tours are like.
Thank you so much, Andy and Colleen, for that very informative session. I have just a few quick reminders for people, and then we are going to get to our Q&A. I have plenty of questions, so I will get to those for you in just a moment. So, you get a little breather here for about 60 seconds. And I want to remind people that we do have an early booking discount. If, as Andy said, we knocked your socks off and you are rearing and ready to go, please keep in mind that we do have our early booking discount on all of our recently released 2026 tours. That's $100 off through July 7th, and it is automatically applied at checkout. I do want to remind you, if you do book a tour, this is kind of the start page of the information that you fill out. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner that this tour has a $400 deposit. Your deposit is fully refundable for 30 days, and it will be a refund. You won't get credit, you'll get a full refund. And so deposits are refundable for 30 days afterwards. Now, if you said, hey, I liked that, but I want to do a little bit more research, a few things that you can do. All of these are linked in the chat widget in the resources that Divya posted earlier. You can watch more of our tour experience videos. We saw the hotel segment earlier in this presentation, but we have many more where you can hear from our travelers. You can watch our additional content on the Travel Talks YouTube channel. And you can go to our travel forum, as Andy mentioned, and in addition to a lot of opportunities to crowdsource advice from your fellow travelers about independent travel, we also have a page dedicated to our tours where you can get people's thoughts on various itineraries. So lots of additional ways to learn about our tours, but right now we are going to pivot to our Q&A. I would like to say, maybe if you're on the East Coast and you have to get to bed, we will be posting a recording of tonight's presentation on that Rick Steves Travel Talks YouTube channel, hopefully within 24 hours, at the very latest, sometime on Monday. And so feel free if you need to go to bed to catch up on the Q&A then, but we have a lot of great questions, and so I'm not going to skimp on the questions. And I would like to start with...
I think he was saying we talked a lot.
You talked wonderfully, so I am glad that it was in high quantity. Andy, I'm going to start with a question for you. Keely is wondering, why is it that we travel by bus, and do any of our tours offer an opportunity to travel by other modes of transportation?
Good question. Why do we travel by bus? A number of different reasons. One, our company has designed these itineraries based on the efficiency of getting 26 to 28 tour members onto a bus. The economy of scale there allows us to build in a ton of value into these packages, and also provide great efficiency of travel for our tour members. Our bus driver meets us as close as they can get to the hotel, usually a block or two away from the hotel. We get there, we're on board. It gives Colleen and I and the rest of our guides a platform to speak on the microphone, to prep for our next destination. And we found it to be a very efficient way to get around. We've been doing it for 40 years and it's worked for us so far. So we'll keep it there. The next question was, do we use other modes of transportation? Occasionally, is it like the Barcelona-Madrid tour, for example? Do we take the train across? I haven't led that tour, but generally we use buses. Occasionally we use trains or other modes of transportation, even ferries, right?
Yeah.
Where it makes sense.
On the Greece tours, we'll take a ferry to get over to Hydra. On the Family Europe tour, we take the Channel train from London to Paris. And even on some of our Italy itineraries, we'll take a 5-minute train ride to the Cinque Terre, I mean to Monterosso. But it really is great to have that coach, and it really does feel like a home away from home. I think a lot of people at first feel like, I don't know if I want to be on a bus, and after a while it's where they can settle in and they socialize and really kind of nest on that coach.
And if you happen to pick up some Venetian glass or some limoncello, the bus provides a place where you can hide it away until the tour is over. So that helps as well.
Colleen, I have a question from you, or for you rather. Steve is wondering if our hotels have air conditioning.
You know, many of them do, but not all of them. There are certain countries where air conditioning still just isn't a big thing, especially in Northern Europe, in Scandinavian countries, sometimes in Germany. And then even in some of our Southern Mediterranean countries, there's air conditioning. It might not be as robust as we're used to at home, but definitely enough to keep you comfortable. But if it's something, if the hot summer months are a concern for you, then I would take a look at some of our more off-season travel, where you're traveling in the early spring or late fall.
It also helps to expect not for it to have air conditioning, and then consider every bit of air conditioning a welcome surprise. And for hotels that don't have air conditioning, oftentimes they offer fans, for example. And I've been in hotels where they have air conditioning, but it's not the date that they turn it on yet, which can also be challenging. But it's just part of the experience of being over there.
Thank you both very much. I have one question that actually I'm going to quickly answer because it's one that we receive often. And in my former role at the company as a travel advisor, I answered it often. This one is from my good friend, Eloise. Eloise, wonderful to have you here. And Eloise was asking if we at Rick Steves Europe ever arrange air travel for people. That is, our tour packages do not include air travel to and from, given that people are coming from all different places. Many of our tour members like to add on some days before or afterwards. So you do need to get yourself to the first tour hotel and home from the last tour hotel. That said, if that is something that makes you nervous, we are happy to provide guidance. So you can just send an email to tour@ricksteves.com, tour@ricksteves.com. We have I should mention, one huge asset we have is we have an in-house customer experience team of travel advisors and tour sales specialists that are happy to help you out and give you advice. They can also refer you to a travel agency that can help you with those flight reservations.
Also, Gabe, once you book a tour, you can log into your account and you'll see exact directions to the first hotel and from the last hotel, right?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Andy.
Sure thing.
Andy and Colleen, we're going to kind of move on. Those were some tour logistics questions. This is a great question about group travel. We have Susan, who is wondering, how do you handle difficult travelers? And I'll say first, I've been on several tours. I've never felt like there's been a problem traveler. As Andy said, we try to set our expectations very clear up front. We have our no grumps policy. That said, We take thousands of people on tour every year. I'm not going to say it never happens. What are your strategies, though, for working with group dynamics if maybe there is a group dynamics issue every now and then?
I would say that communication is key. So a lot of times if there's somebody who is feeling a bit grumpy or they're a little bit difficult, just having a one-on-one conversation with them and asking them how things are going, if they have any concerns. And a lot of times it is just having that conversation with them and answering any questions or concerns that they may have, or it might just simply be a misunderstanding. So I think there's never such a thing as over communication. So it's nice to just have that one-on-one with them, and that's often what solves the problem.
And in the tours that I've led, it's never been issues between tour members. Any tension that happens is usually within the family unit. So it's kind of there, you can sense that there's some tension, but better left to them. Generally, thankfully, we do a great job of communicating expectations up front. Anybody who has had a hard time with things, usually it's the spouse or the family member or somebody else who has been who their person signed up for them, if that makes sense. So please have everybody in your family or your friend group read everything on the website so everybody knows what they're getting themselves into.
And not just read everything, but don't insist that somebody come with you because this is a trip of your lifetime, your dream trip. If somebody really truly doesn't feel like it's the right fit for them, then it's best that they choose something else, because it's just, I think it's fabulous if you've got everybody on board and wanting to be there.
And
I
one
would
last
also,
thing, if I can add, our tours are designed in a structure of roughly 50-50, where it's 50% structured group time, but then you really do have a lot of free time as well. So for those of you who are trying to break out and do your own thing, you have adequate time to do that on the tour as well.
Absolutely.
I would also add, we occasionally hear from people that will say, oh, even a group size of, a maximum of 24 to 28 seems big. I'd rather be on a really small boutique tour. And there are certainly opportunities to do that. But we actually very intentionally choose that number. I think in part because even if somebody's not a problem tour member, there are people that you are going to resonate with more than others. And we find that that is a good group size where if you have a couple people that you don't resonate with, they are not 25% of your tour group. So it's a small enough number that you can still get to know everyone, but a large enough number that you have some flexibility to gravitate towards your fellow tour members that you resonate with most.
And if you're on a 2-week tour, it's so much fun to be able to have dinner with different people at each meal, and to spend some free time, if you choose to spend some free time with your fellow tour members, with others. So you don't get tired of one another is what we're trying to say.
Colleen, I have a question for you. So Laura was asking, why is it that you talked about your day in Rome, and we have a lot of tours that go through Rome, but many of them no longer have a group entry into places like the Vatican or the Colosseum. Can you speak to why we've made that decision?
Yes, it's because the bookings became impossible to guarantee a booking for that. There are a lot of bots that will book up tickets, reservations throughout the year, and it became almost impossible for us to be able to get group reservations guaranteed for every single one of our tours. So one of the decisions was, if we can't guarantee a reservation, then we think it would be better to have them see it independently. Also, at the Colosseum and the Vatican museums, we also found that it became stressful for our groups in very crowded situations to enjoy the experience altogether. They were worried about being separated from the group. And with our Audio Europe apps now, it's become a much more pleasant experience to see those things independently. Because if you're not trying to stay together with a group and see where your tour guide is, and instead you're going at your own pace, for an independent traveler, those sites that can get very crowded are a much more pleasant experience doing that independently.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. Andy, this one is for you. We have a couple people, at least 2 or 3 that I saw in the Q&A that actually have already signed up for their first Rick Steves Europe tour. And we're just curious to get a little preview of what they can expect in the year ahead. And I'm wondering, what would be your advice to travelers that have already signed up for that first tour? In the time between now and their tour, what are some things that they could do to really make sure that they can maximize their tour experience?
Oh geez, that's quite a list of fun stuff to do. And we were speaking to this, how it's totally up to your style of travel. If you're a passive traveler, you're going to have a good time and you can kick back and relax. For the more engaged traveler who wants to really maximize their experience, get ready. Okay, so between now and when your tour starts, you should read cover to cover the book that you receive in your tour packet. Check out the tour forum and look up your tour and see what other tour alums have commented about that itinerary. Go into the Rick Steves Auto Europe app and download all the relevant subjects on whatever that itinerary might be it the Louvre in Paris or you name it, walk-in tours in Florence and so on.
Yeah.
And begin to listen to those so you can anticipate what you're going to see. For me, I love to look at the dates where I'm going to be where and look up events, see what else is going on. I love, for example, to get on my bike. I love cycling. So I pay attention to when and where the Tour de France is each year in France, and I see if my travel plans are going to overlap that, for example. Maybe people are into festivals or whatever your hobbies are back home in the States. Look for events that might relate to that when you're over in Europe and make a point to track that down.
Can I add also for
Yeah.
anybody who's a real foodie, there are so many great walking food tours that you can take that are such a great way to learn the culture. You can also take some cooking classes or do a wine tasting
Yeah.
or even just find out what some favorite restaurants are and book those in advance.
That's another thing. For example, there's some really cool new sites that I've actually booked ahead of time. And I logged into my tour portal on ricksteves.com and I saw, okay, when are my free afternoons and my free evenings based on whatever itinerary I'm on. And then in Florence, I booked a ticket into the Vasari corridor. That's the long hallway connecting the Medici Palace to the offices. Nobody's ever been able, from the public, been able to walk through that corridor. So I booked myself on that on a free afternoon. And then in Rome, there's the Caravaggio exhibit as well happening at the Barberini Palace. I've also signed up for, or got myself a ticket for entry there. There's some fascinating and rare and unique events and exhibits, galleries, and so on happening. So Google the heck out of it and see what's going on over in Europe during your itinerary.
Thank you so much. And I will say, as actually our tour members that we heard from in this session, Heather and Michelle, I believe, were saying, it can really be both ways. You can actually, I did our Best of Bulgaria tour last September, and I did not do much research in advance. I had a wonderful time. I think certainly in places like Italy, where more reservations are required, if you know you want to do some additional sightseeing, it's smart to plan ahead. And also, if that list sounded overwhelming, once you sign up for the tour, in your online tour portal, and in some of the email communications that get sent out, we give you recommendations of things that you could do to make sure that you're optimizing your tour experience.
And always remember, your guide is there to help with recommendations. I mean, there are certain reservations, if you don't book them far enough in advance, your guide might not be able to help facilitate that. But as far as just things to do during your independent free time, we'd love to tell people what to do.
All right, Andy and Colleen, we have come to our last question of the evening. It is a very hard-hitting one. I saw that behind the scenes, Dan and Divya were chatting about their favorite gelato flavors. And I would like to know, what is your favorite gelato flavor when traveling in Europe?
Oof.
All right, so mine isn't really that unique or exotic. I love pistachio. It's my favorite.
That's a tasty one. I love melone, especially when it's in season. Melone is cantaloupe. And to think you have this almost sorbet rich flavor of cantaloupe on a hot day in Florence just really hits the spot. So, yeah, good question.
How about you, Gabe?
You stole mine, Colleen. I think pistachio. I also love pear, though.
Mm.
My other favorites. So, all of you still joining us, feel free to drop a final comment in the Q&A with your favorite gelato flavor. And Colleen and Andy, I'm going to thank you once more for spending this time with us this evening. I'm so excited that you two are going to be on the road with our upcoming tour members in just a couple of weeks. And hopefully some of our potential tour members viewing tonight will get to join you or one of our other great guides on the road soon. So thank you very
See you
much.
on the road.
Grazie.
Buona serata.
Buona serata.
Ciao.
And to all of you viewers, I want to thank you once more for joining us this evening. We hope that we will be able to see you on a tour in Europe very soon. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a lovely evening.